you want to be able to basically set yourself up for the entire season on one or two big decisions that break your way. And kind of the way you do that isn't by just fading the chalk completely. We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by FanDuel. Week 6 pivot/leverage plays of the week. Position by position, guys that might go overlooked in DFS tournaments that can help us get to the top of the leaderboards. Plus, showing you guys how we plan to use this information by building a GPP lineup live at the end.
Holka, what's up, buddy? Excited for this. Actually, I'm really excited for this week, actually. I know I always say that, but it's our first week with buys and it's just a 10-game slate. So I think it just lets it'll let ownership concentrate a little bit more on a couple players, just depending on some injury news and stuff. We got one really popular game. So I actually think this is a really cool slate.
I like these weeks, man. And it's not like we don't have like any firepower to like go after, right? So if ownership does condense on these couple games like we think it will, like there's going to be plenty of options to go to. Like I've struggled with the weeks where the ownership ends up being like super spread out, right? Because then like where do you even find that sort of leverage? So it's definitely an interesting one, and we'll get into it. This first guy that we're going to talk about, let's just get into it, TJ. So your GPP quarterback play of the week is Carson Wentz. He's 6,700 against this Houston Texans team. So he's extremely cheap. We've actually talked about this game a decent amount today. So I'm scared that it's going to maybe be like the cool kid GPP play one of the week. But tell us why you like Carson Wentz.
Yeah, if it is, I don't think it will be with Wentz. And I just like Wentz because, I mean, in all reality, if you're playing something like 100 lineups, I think probably 90 of them will be like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that aren't Winston for good reason. I mean, we have Mahomes, we have Heineke in the same game, and then probably Lamar and Justin Herbert, and then we'll kind of see how everything else falls from there. But I like Wentz because he just gets you away from all of those guys in terms of salary. Just like if people are paying down, it's going to be for Heineke, and then Carson Wentz goes even cheaper than that, right? The Colts have an implied point total just under 27. That's the 5th highest, but more importantly, they're 10-point underdogs. So I think we end up probably seeing JT with a lot of ownership, Jonathan Taylor, and then to a lesser extent, maybe Michael Pittman. We know his usage has been ascending, and I think people are starting to talk him up a bit. So it just gets you in a really unique salary tier at quarterback, lets you get Carson Wentz, get Pittman when the Colts can score a lot of points, and we saw them put up a decent number against the Ravens last week. But if everybody's going to be on JT, it's leverage there. But it really, if we're using someone like Wentz, it's not because we think Wentz is going to outscore these other quarterbacks. It's because he's saving so much money that he's going to be so contrarian that is going to let us load up on all these other games that we're talking about. So if you want Tyreek, if you want Cooper Kupp, if you want Travis Kelce, Marquise Brown, even though he's not that expensive, Mark Andrews, whoever it is, you can really load up on these guys because we're talking about FanDuel. You can get 3 expensive pass catchers in your lineup. And it's just going to be, even though those players aren't going to be unique, there's not going to be a lot of lineups with 3 or 4 of them because most people are going to be paying for Lamar or Patrick Mahomes or something like that. So this is more of a unique thing in terms of build. You don't need Carson Wentz to get you 30, but if him and Pittman can get you combined for, say, 40, now we're kind of in business.
Yeah, it's almost like a roster construction type of pivot, right? Because 6,700, like that's even significantly cheaper than people that are going to go to Heineke. I think he's 500 more expensive on FanDuel. So I like that quite a bit, especially with the leverage that you'll get there. And basically, even if you wanted to go with Pittman in like kind of a skinny stack with this, like I think that'll be unique just because I don't think a lot of people are going to want to pair Pittman with his quarterback. So a little bit more opportunity there to be different. And then you have a lot of firepower left the rest of your lineup. So let's move on to the leverage running back of the week, Javonte Williams. He's 5,600 on FanDuel at the Raiders, at home versus the Raiders. Melvin Gordon did get in a limited practice on Thursday with that hip injury, though, TJ. So any concerns there?
I actually kind of like this play a little bit more if Gordon does play.
Nice.
I think that if Gordon is out, then Javonte probably ends up being kind of chalky, not super chalky because we have Darrell Williams at 5,200, but that's another reason I like Williams because he serves as just that kind of natural price pivot off of Darrell Williams. And this week is really interesting at running back for a couple of reasons. One, we have 6 running backs that average 20 touches per game. Christian McCaffrey just got downgraded to doubtful as we're recording this. And then there's a chance that Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon don't play. So that means every running back averaging 20 touches could be off the main slate, whether because of injury, bye, or they're not playing on the main slate. So that means that the running back position is going to be a lot more high variance than usual, right? Because we don't have our highest volume guys. And then on top of it, 6 of the 10 games feature home teams that are underdogs. Those are games that are often low scoring or just go off the rails because home teams typically are better than when they're away. So those are situations that I think are worth targeting for just games that you're looking to go off the rails. So with all that, even though running back isn't a position that we typically need to be super contrarian at, I think it's a really good week to do it because of all those factors. Javante's in a 50-50 touch share. If Melvin does play, if he's hobbled a little bit, if that bumps up to 60 or 65% share against a Raiders team that is bottom 10 in schedule adjusted points allowed to the position, as one of the few teams that are home favorites, not that home underdog like we're talking about. This game can go to script, while a lot of other games might not go to script. And if Javonte does finally have that breakout, I think it's a really good spot to be contrarian. And again, that salary pivot off of Darrell Williams is really interesting as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, if people are going to talk themselves into Darrell Williams or even like Devontae Booker, like you get to that point and it's like we can poke holes in both of those plays pretty significantly, right? So at that point, you probably do just want to find a guy that's going to give you comparable volume, but at much lower ownership, probably a third of Darrell Williams by the time we get to the end of the week. So I like that quite a bit.
Yeah, if CMC, Mixon, and Dalvin are all out, like the ownership has to go somewhere, right? So someone like Darrell Williams is just going to get juiced up even more. Like the running back options are just super limited on this slate.
All right, TJ, before we move on to wide receiver, I did check this specific video last week, and only 10% of subscribers have actually hit that notification bell. So if you're watching this live, you're already late seeing this go up, unless you basically correct that immediately. And let's get into our wide receiver GPP play of the week. Brandon Cooks, he's 6,500 on FanDuel at Indy. So kind of the other side of that Indy game that we were talking about. Only Devontae Adams with a higher weighted opportunity rating over the last 4 games than Brandon Cooks. So tell us why you like him.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks at 6,500 in a game. And I know I mentioned Carson Wentz, I mentioned Michael Pittman. Probably worth saying that I don't think it's worth like doing a Wentz Pittman with a Cooks bring back. I don't think on FanDuel, where you can afford so many players in good spots, that you want to put that much equity into one game. But Brandon Cooks standalone, a Brandon Cooks with a bring back with JT, a Brandon Cook skinny with Pittman, all of those make sense to me. But as a standalone play, why I like Cooks, like you said, highest weighted opportunity rating next to Adams. Besides Adams, only a few other players besides those two over 70% weighted opportunity. They're over 80%. So not only are they first and second, kind of blowing away the field there. Like basically any usage metric that you look at Cooks, he's near the top of the league. Top 5 in targets per route one, top 3 in target share, top in air yard share. And as we mentioned already, Houston's going to be a 10-point underdog, so they should be in a really pass-heavy game script. And the Colts are a pass funnel, 31st in schedule adjusted points to quarterbacks, 21st against wide receivers, but they're 7th against running backs. They've also allowed the most deep touchdowns this year, passes of 15-plus air yards. That's on the second fewest deep attempts against them. So they're not getting thrown at a lot on deep balls, but when they are, they're connecting on them. And Brandon Cooks with a 13-yard ADOT, that could benefit him.
I like that. And we normally talk about the running back slots just being so valuable that you want to make sure that you're using them effectively. This week feels like almost the complete opposite, where the wide receiver slots, because we have so many good, like expensive wide receivers to try and get up to, and not as strong of running back plays, to where, like what you're saying, if you're going to burn 2 wide receiver slots on Brandon Cooks and on Pittman, I don't really like that very much. So I think I'm with you. If I'm playing one of these guys, it's probably, if I'm playing both of these guys, it's probably not going to be in a full stack. So I'm with you completely on that. So the tight end lock of the week was paying all the way down. Spoiler alert. So if you haven't checked out that segment with Jake Seeley, definitely check out that one next with RSJ. So what we're going to do here, TJ, is your GPP tight end of the week is going to be Darren Waller at the complete opposite end of the salary spectrum. He's 7K on FanDuel at Denver. Tell us why.
On FanDuel, one of the things that I love doing is being contrarian with expensive, really good players. And Darren Waller is one of those players this week at $7,000. Ownership's going to, like you said, it's going to be RSJ, maybe a little bit of Hunter Henry, and then Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Travis Kelce and Mark, especially if TJ Hawkinson is out. Ownership's just going to fall so much on those two guys, and for good reason. They're in really good spots. But if we look at something like 4for4's receiver breakout model, where it looks at expected fantasy points, compares them to produce points, Waller's second in expected fantasy points among all tight ends over the last 3 weeks. Only one that is higher is Travis Kelce. Obviously hasn't been performing up to those expectations, so really pops in the breakout model. His usage is up there, even though like his overall targets and target share is a little bit down compared to what we saw last year. Still really high in expected fantasy points, which is encompassing where the targets are coming from, expected touchdowns, all the metrics we care about for fantasy sports. And then if you want, you can really get unique with Waller. Again, we talked about running backs kind of weird this week, and if you want to like pay up for a Kelce or Andrews and then flex a Waller, you can do that too. I don't think it's something that you want to do a lot. But when we don't have a deep running back pool, and you maybe want to jam in Kelce, it's a way to pay up for I mean, Darren Waller performs like a wide receiver one a lot of the weeks. So in theory, you could say you're getting a discount compared to some of the other wide receivers. So it's not something I would necessarily do a lot, but the last time a Sunday Million winner used a tight end in the flex, it was a Waller Kelce combo.
Interesting. Shout out Jeff Donovan in the chat, actually letting us know as we're live right now, Damian Williams is officially on the COVID list. So that changes a decent amount at the running back position. Instant reaction, TJ. What do you think about this? I guess another wrinkle in this running back slate that's already kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, he was that was a situation where I think it looks like it was going to be really ugly with the split we saw with Damian and
what is that other guy's name? I always forget it.
Khalil Herbert.
Okay,
Khalil Herbert. Yeah. And then, but I mean, the interesting thing about that is that they started with Damian Williams, and then Herbert just kind of looked better, snapped and out touched Williams in the second half. And I don't think it was really because they were winning. Like Herbert was catching more passes, and it was only like a 3-touch difference in favor of Williams. So Khalil Herbert is at 5,500. So I mean, that almost makes Javonte a better play because there's a really good chance that now we see all of this ownership on Herbert and Darrell Williams.
Yeah, it's interesting because we have this break this early in the week. It's not like it happened on Sunday morning. So just the ownership is going to be probably steamed up there just because it's going to be something that people are talking about as the week finishes up here. So very interesting. Let's move on to your defense, leverage, GPP, pivot, all that good stuff of the week. Basically attacking this game that I think is going to be one of the most popular of the entire week. We have the Kansas City defense at Washington. They're 3,800 on FanDuel. So is that kind of how you're thinking about it, TJ? Everyone's just going to be on this one from a stacking perspective. Let's see what happens with the defense if it goes wrong.
Yeah, and the biggest talking point, I think, in sports right now, or at least in football, is how bad the Chiefs defense is, right? Especially after getting smoked by the Bills on national TV. And people hate playing what quote unquote bad plays, but this is we're playing units, we're playing situations. The Chiefs are favored by almost a touchdown, and really good things happen when teams get up by a lot. And obviously the Chiefs are not in territory that they've been in before. I think it's a spot where not only do they score a lot, but they could decide we're just going to run up the score and remind everybody that we're the Chiefs. And if they get up but big, it doesn't matter how bad they are in any metric. That's where fantasy points are accumulated. And we talked about this with the Cowboys last week, right? This is exactly why we wanted the Cowboys last week. They end up getting up. Their running backs score a bunch of points. They get a defensive touchdown really late in the game. That's what we want to happen. Tyler Heineke, he's going to be really popular. He might be the second most popular quarterback besides Mahomes. I think Lamar might have something to say about that, but the point is he'll be out there. He's thrown 5 picks this year, 4 of them in the last 2 games, with 2 games with multiple picks, 5th highest in interception rate. So it's not like Heineke's the savior. He's good. He's good for fantasy. I think Washington is exciting with him in there, especially Terry McLaurin, but he also has a really wide range of outcomes. And I think if this game goes off script, exactly like we talked about last week, if they get a special teams touchdown, if they get a late defensive touchdown, it doesn't matter how good they are in real life.
Yeah, and I get comments like this all the time as we like do certain reviews. Or like, what's the point of putting in all these players at super low ownership if they're bad plays? And what people that are probably watching this video right now probably need to realize is that we're not trying to build a team that scores the most points, TJ. We're trying to beat other people, right? So there's a completely different mindset there. So how does this slate go completely sideways? It's as if this Kansas City and Washington game ends up, I guess, seeing points in like different ways. So that's how you pass people in DFS. So I love that call. I almost love each week like trying to target these games that might be high scoring, see some pass attempts, whatever it is, but just playing the defenses instead of the skill position players on at least one team. So I love that.
Yeah, anything and we're not like, we're not trying. When we give these picks, we give a pick at every position. We're not telling you guys to build a roster with all of these players, right? We're sprinkling them in along good plays. We're looking at our average ownership number, cumulative ownership number, however you want to look at it. And I actually just wrote about this week, about your highest average score in GPPs and cash games, highest average score possible every single week. GPPs, if you're cashing like min cashing all the time, you're actually probably doing something wrong.
Oh, you're losing money for sure.
You're probably not giving yourself a chance to win. Like you should have a ton of really bad losses and then one spot. If you win the milli, it sets you up for, a lifetime of ROI, maybe not a lifetime of not working, but a lifetime of ROI. And that's literally what we're trying to do. If you're playing $5 buy-ins and playing 20 of those every week, a lot of zeros, lots of fives, lots of tens, all of a sudden you get to 20,000. That's what we're trying to do in tournaments.
Yeah, survive in advance in some ways. Like you want to be able to basically set yourself up for the entire season on one or two big decisions that break your way. And kind of the way you do that isn't by just fading the chalk completely. Like TJ, you're looking at the Sunday Million a ton. I would imagine that it's a pretty big mixture between like sprinkling in some of the best plays, but also like doing things completely differently, right? And having some other super low owned plays mixed in there. So you almost like don't want to be in the middle a lot of times, right? Like you don't have to completely fade the best plays. Like I would imagine that some of the teams that like perform really well have a really solid like barbell effect of both, right?
Yeah, I mean this year's been weird because we've seen really compacted ownership, like not a lot of guys over 25%. But traditionally on FanDuel, where it lets you roster so many studs, what we usually see is like running back, quarterback, maybe one wide receiver that are pretty high in ownership, like you said, and then a few guys that just make the lineup different, that barbell approach. Because all of these guys that are popular, they're popular for good reason because they're really good plays. We're just hoping that we get the spot that goes awry. And that's why we're always talking about leverage and getting players that offer the most leverage, because we're not just trying to be contrarian. We're trying to benefit when things go off the rails. And usually that means a player that's supposed to be in a really good spot not performing as such.
All right, we have TJ's Pivot, so I want you guys to pause this video. Let me know in the comments your favorite Week 6 tournament play. TJ, you ready to build a FanDuel team, my man?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So this team will be in the listener league at fanduel.com/Holka. So make sure you guys get in there before it fills. $5, 3 max, rake free, all that good stuff. Lineups from TJ, Jake Seeley, and Rich Rebar will be in this contest every single week. TJ, what do you think we start with here?
All right, we've been going off the rails a little too much on this one, so I think we're gonna let's try to lean into some really good tournament theory and build a lineup that isn't so contrarian. So what we talked about at the top, if we play Carson Wentz, it's going to be because it's going to load us up on a lot of really popular pass catchers. So let's lean into a build like that. Let's start with Wentz and Pittman, and then start leaning into our popular pass catchers, because that's going to make us really contrarian with Wentz already.
All right, so we got Wentz, we got Pittman.
Yep.
We're not doing a bring back, so that's going to basically allow us to play whatever we want from there, essentially, because it's so cheap.
That's exactly what we're going for. So I think Uber Chalk and the most popular game of the week is going to be the pass catchers. We got Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Terry McLaurin. Tyreek Hill.
Are you worried about Tyreek at all, that injury? We were talking about it with Jake, and it seems like
a quad, right?
I was maybe under, I guess, selling how bad it was. I don't know. Like it wasn't on my radar to be like worried about it until today, really.
Yeah. He would sideline at practice today. I mean,
it's Thursday.
Yeah, it's Thursday. I mean, I kind of wait to like really gauge injury news till Friday practice reports and then what we're hearing on Saturday. So I'm not sure that I'm worried about it yet, but Washington gives up a lot of deep balls and just a lot of points in general. And so I think I'm just going to roll Tyreek Terry mini for now.
Nice, nice. Like I said, like I don't want to give up these wide receiver slots easily. I want to have some stud firepower in there. Obviously, the Pittman stuff makes it fit, but nice having a little mini, like an elite mini stack there with Terry and Tyreek. So, so still 6,200 the rest
And
of the way.
The good thing about a player like Tyreek is if we get late news, he's so expensive if he's penciled in.
Easy.
You can just pivot to anybody you want and then start playing from there. It's not like you're gambling on a $6,000 player and then you have to move the whole thing. You can just get Kelsey in there and then figure it out from there if you want. Yeah,
exactly. All right. So you want to toss in some sort of defense in here? For now, probably not going to be KC like we talked about with Tyreek on this team, but
no. I actually like a let me
we got
I actually like a Daryl Henderson Daryl Henderson, not Daryl Williams, Daryl Henderson Los Angeles Rams combo here.
I like that. We paying all the way up for the Rams at 5K. We weren't able to do that with Jake's team, but the Rams are actually his lock of the week at defense. So we're gonna get a little bit of a mixture between you guys on these teams today. I like it.
Yeah, biggest favorite of the week. I think I don't think you're necessarily going to get leverage off of Cup because I think Henderson might be just as popular. Again, like we have so much running back news that we're waiting on. It's kind of hard to like have confident ownership projections right now. I kind of middled all my ownership projections today, which probably isn't going to make it super accurate, but we just don't have enough information on running back. So I have like all of these guys like at 22-ish% right now.
Okay. Interesting.
But we'll see.
So 6,300 the rest of the way. I guess, would you consider adding to this mini stack with RSJ, or are you trying to stay away from that chalk?
No.
You keep making a face every time I bring up RSJ. What's the deal?
I just on FanDuel, we need so many points and so many touchdowns. And we have like, if we're going to have chalky tight ends, if 3 of our chalkiest tight ends are going to be 2 of the best in the league, and then RSJ, like, what are we really doing here, right? So if I'm going to eat the chalk on a tight end, I want it to be with the best tight ends in the league. And they're in really good situations. The Chiefs are in the highest scoring game of the week. The Ravens are in what might be like the best scoring environment of the week if we look at pace and plays per game. So I actually rather go all the way up to Andrews here and get him in my lineup.
Sweet. We actually don't have any exposure to this game so far on the guest team. So I like that. And honestly, like even just doing the review that I do on Twitter every week, you're seeing like almost every single week at tight end, like it's a super low owned guy that gets there anyway. Like very rarely, it's so spread out because it's such a like there's so much variance involved in the position. So I don't really like eating the chalk at tight end ever at the lower end of things, right? Because like what are you gaining?
Yeah, ever at the lower end. And actually that lines up with the offseason study I did that specifically on FanDuel, the teams that were very profitable when they were eating the chalk. It was with expensive tight ends. It wasn't with cheap tight ends that were chalky. Like those weren't in winning lineups. Chalky tight ends that were expensive, those were winning lineups. It makes sense. If we're going to go with the field, go with a player that's really good.
I like that. I think that's something that I probably haven't been doing well enough is getting different at tight end. I've been trying to correlate it with my stacks mostly. So I think if you're not doing that, going off the board isn't the worst thing you can do at the position. So 6,400 the rest of the way. We probably could get in Mike with Andrews, maybe not. Keenan's pretty cheap. Do you want to mini stack this, or do you have some other things in mind?
Well, I think that these pass catchers are really, really chalky, obviously, and I think Daryl's pretty chalky. So I think even though Carson is chalky, I think we probably let's throw in that Javonte contrarian play and see what it leaves. See what it leaves us with.
Yeah, I think that definitely fits for this build. So now we have 7,200 in the flex. So the range that we're in essentially is Thielen, Swift, Keenan Allen, Joe Mixon, Darren Waller type of plays. Or if we wanted to move down a little bit, we still could play Marquise Brown, play Andrews and Marquise Brown together as a mini. I don't hate that either with no bring back. But those guys are going to be popular. You're probably right. So, like, would we want to go to, like, a Keenan Allen or something if everyone's going to be on Mike?
How much is Keenan?
Keenan's 7,100, so it would fit.
And how much do we have?
72.
Oh, that's perfect. And it gives us that gives us a mini with Andrews.
Yep.
And you're getting what's the discount from Mike Williams to Keenan? $900?
It's significant now. Yeah. So Mike Williams is all the way up to 8K now. So yeah, $900.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I know Mike Williams is getting red zone targets, end zone targets, deep targets. Keenan Allen still leads one of the best offenses in the league in targets and red zone targets. He's tied for targets inside the 10-yard line. So like, it's not like they're not using Keenan Allen.
TJ Hernandez, everyone. Want to remind you guys that I give away free sports memorabilia every single week. So check out this video right here next to see what I pulled from the Week 6 Pristine Auction Mystery Box.